The bad news was released to the public by then Treasury Secretary Paul O'Neill, who let it slip that the Social Security Fund had no assets at all, and instead just had pieces of paper in its account. "I come to you as managing trustee of Social Security," O'Neill said. "Today, we have no assets in the trust fund. We have the good faith and credit of the United States government that benefits will flow." In other words, Greenspan and Reagan had conspired to hike Social Security payments, justifying it with the promise of building up a Social Security nest egg for subsequent decades, then used up that nest egg on current government spending. Now, it was bad enough that Greenspan, who as a Randian was supposedly against all use of government force, would propose such a big tax hike. But what made his role especially villainous was that when George W. Bush decided to start sounding alarm bells about the future of Social Security, it was none other than Alan Greenspan who came out and argued that maybe it was time to cut Social Security benefits. This is from a Washington Post story in February 2004. Greenspan offered several ways to curtail federal spending growth, including reducing Social Security and Medicare benefits. The Fed chairman again recommended raising the age at which retirees become eligible to keep pace with the population's rising longevity. And he reminded lawmakers that they could link cost of living increases in benefits levels to a measure of inflation other than the Consumer Price Index, a widely followed measure that some economists believe overstates the rise in overall prices. A measure that showed less inflation would cause benefit levels to rise more slowly. To recap, Greenspan hikes Social Security taxes by $1.5 trillion or so. 4 presidents spend all that money on other shit, including, in George W. Bush's case, a massive tax cut for the wealthy. And then, when it comes time to start paying out those promised benefits, Greenspan announces that it can't be afforded. The money isn't there. Benefits can't be paid out. It was a shell game. Money comes in the front door as payroll taxes and goes right out the back door as deficit spending, with only new payroll taxes over the years keeping the bubble from popping, continuing the illusion that the money had never left. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, way back in 1983, had called this thievery. But as the scam played out over the decades, it earned a more specific title. A classic Ponzi scheme, is how one reporter who covered Greenspan put it. Coming up with a scheme like this is the sort of service that endears one to presidents. And by the mid-'80s, Greenspan got his chance at the big job. Reagan had grown disenchanted with Volcker. The administration apparently wanted a Fed chief who would collaborate more intimately with the White House, as one Fed historian put it, and they got him in Greenspan, whom Reagan put in the top job in 1987. Greenspan struggled inwardly to contain his glee, his biographer Tuchili wrote, and came into the job with great fanfare, including a Time magazine cover story that anointed him the new Mr. Dollar. He breezed through the nomination process, despite a battering by Wisconsin Senator William Proxmire, who wailed on Greenspan's record of failed forecasts during his tenure on Ford's Council of Economic Advisers. In one of the more humorous exchanges, Greenspan attempted to deny that he had once predicted a T-bill rate of 4.4% for 1978. It turned out to be 9.8%. Or that the U.S. Consumer Price Index would rise 4.5%. It actually rose 9.5%. That is not my recollection of the way those forecasts went, Greenspan asserted. Proxmire then went on to read out Greenspan's predictions one by one. "Well," Greenspan quipped, "if they're written down, those are the numbers." Proxmire kept at Greenspan, but it didn't take. On August 11, 1987, Alan Greenspan was sworn in as Federal Reserve Chairman, effectively marking the beginning of the bubble generation.